If you ever catch yourself thinking, am I doing the right training? The secret isn't a single magic workout or a quick fix. It's about weaving together the right variety of intensities, making well-timed adjustments, and staying current with training science. Take base training, for instance. I've moved away from traditional linear progression, which focuses narrowly on one type of effort at a time. While it had its place, this approach is now outdated. The latest method, integrating different intensities and workouts across your base period. In this video, I'll break down base training into 3 key parts. Why updating your base training matters, and why older methods fall short. How to make it more effective by mixing different workout intensities, a clear base training plan grounded in science and easy to follow. By the end, you'll have a training approach that's adaptable, effective, and built to last. Over the last 12 years, I've refined my approach to base training to make sure it's informed by both experience and the latest science, helping hundreds of cyclists get faster, do better in events, and enjoy riding more in the process. Let's start by unpacking what base training really means. First, a clarification. Base training has no scientific definition whatsoever. The term emerged in the 1950s and 60s from legendary running coach Arthur Lydiard and still holds influence today. My guess is that it's because of the importance of foundational aerobic fitness in endurance sports is still the same now as it was back then. But even considering this importance, there's little scientific research directly on base training itself. Most studies in this area are based on observation rather than real-world application or interventions. What does have robust scientific backing are the physiological adaptations associated with low-intensity aerobic training. These form the true building blocks of endurance. These adaptations highlight why aerobic training is essential for endurance sports, typically developing over weeks and months of consistent training. But what if I told you the right amount of low-intensity work to make these changes isn't one size fits all? You probably already know this. A better question then, in your specific situation, how much do you need to do to make progress and not burn out? And is there a minimum amount of low-intensity work that you need to do to even make any changes? And I'll tell you up front that the minimum effective dose of low-intensity training varies based on your current fitness level. So if you're used to regular 4-hour aerobic rides, a 1-hour ride might not provide much of a stimulus. But if you're new to training or returning from a break or an injury, even a 30-minute session could provide a good training response. Now, this isn't perfect though. There is some science around this, but really most people go back to observational studies of professionals, which are not helpful for everybody else. So really, there is no clear answer here. The best you can do is prioritize your available time to doing as much as you can within your capacity to absorb and adapt, giving the training volume. Again, that's vague. I know. But you can measure progress with certain metrics and tests, and it's something that I'll cover when we look at the training plan. For now, here's a simple formula to help you find the training load that fits your life. Your available hours are the hours that you have left after life's commitments. Your energy level is the quality of your sleep and your energy. And the life stress score is the impact of work or family stress on you. If you want to calculate, start with calculating your available time. Start with 168 hours in a week and subtract essential commitments. So sleep, 56 hours, work and commuting, 50 hours, family and personal time, say you have 42 hours, 6 hours a day. That's 20 hours of potentially available time. Step 2, assess your energy level and life balance. Now, just give your energy level a rating. So 0.08 is feeling good out of 0.05 to 1.0. And life balance, how stressful is it? And again, out of 0.05 to 1.0, give yourself a rating. Step 3, now we calculate the training hours. So the training hours here is 20, but then you times it by 0.8 and 0.5 and you get 8 hours. This calculation suggests that 20 hours of potentially available time, good energy levels, but high stress living, you will have a sustainable training load of around 8 hours per week. Remember, this is an estimate, but it does give you an idea of the big picture, which we can then start plugging in workouts. Let's take a closer look at the Team Semi-Pro Low Volume Intermediate Endurance Plan inside Training Peaks, so you can see firsthand how I structure base training to help you reach your goals. All right, we're going to go through this week by week, so let's take a look here. This block focuses on maximum training volume, maximum aerobic adaptations, gaining strength, and also just preparing for events or races overall. And we're looking at extensive aerobic as the metric here, and time in zone is what we're really looking for. So week one, no surprises. Week one, focus heavily on endurance riding, and the reason being that you're just getting started. There's no need for intense intervals here, so we keep it stress-free and really easy in this phase. It should all be about getting back into the habit of riding consistently. Now, rolling into week two, at this point, you can see that we start to add some intensity here on this Tuesday. This can be lactate clearance like I've got here, but you could also include other things. The thing is here, this isn't overly challenging. These over-unders aren't really that hard. It's not as demanding as, say, a full-on VO2 max workout, but really you can swap out for, say, some lower cadence or even just tempo like I have a little bit later on. Now, in week three here, now we really get into the high intensity interval sessions, but this isn't about power. It's about preparing your body to do the work. So by combining these higher intensities with endurance, we build a well-rounded fitness base. And this approach also includes the off-bike elements like strength training, which I'll go into in just a moment. But on the bike, it's a focus of shorter efforts. But really, again, don't worry, at this early stage, these sessions aren't meant to be fatiguing. So in this first block, we start to see some variety, but what you can see is it's not overly interval heavy because again, it's early on in the season and maintaining motivation across longer periods means that you might get fatigued if you're doing too many interval sessions too early in the plan. And I will mention strength here. I love strength work and I love it in this phase, and placing the sessions here is key. You will want to keep at least one complete day off everything, even 2 days off everything. So this means that you need to do a double day or maybe two. And this is only really for the first 8 weeks in the plan. And then it's kind of once every 10 days after that. But finishing out here for week 4, it's a rest here. I recommend you take a rest here. This work builds fatigue slowly. It can hit you all at once and you don't really want to get to that point. Now moving into the second block, weeks 5 to 8, and in this block we add 1 or 2 structured interval workouts each week, focusing on, say, low cadence tempo bursts and long endurance rides. And in some places you are starting to move indoors, so this also helps with motivation, having this bit of variety here, but it is still extensive aerobic and time in zone that we're kind of focusing on. Something to note, really important here, is especially for intermediate and advanced plans, in the Team Semi-Pro training, we have this thing called interval progression. And I'm using this idea of progressive intervals, which gives you the freedom to push to your limits at certain intervals. And really, this is a great way to make sure that you're maximizing your session and available energy and fitness on the day. So week 6 here, here's one key ingredient that I need to point out, the long endurance ride. These will make you faster for all disciplines, whether you're doing events like Grand Fondos or racing crits or road or gravel, everything. Don't miss these. Aim for at least one steady, uninterrupted ride, so we see down here, per week. Week 7, again, there's some high intensity work here, a little bit of intervals building, and a week 8 again, rest again. So you keep it going through, and then this is your break week. Now moving on again, now week 9. So this is where we switch from riding extensive endurance, meaning over time, to intensive, so increasing over time and riding at higher endurance intensities. I do this with this block mostly for over-under work, and I've covered this in another video detailing the weekly setup and the benefit of over-unders versus traditional steady state. But I have both in here, so they both have their place and they feature in this plan, but not so heavily, which is what I want to say is there's some things missing from this plan, and that is long tempo and long low threshold efforts. I've eliminated them in my training plans. I find that they are less beneficial, they're very fatiguing, than other approaches, and they might be useful for specific events. So if you're doing long climbs in Grand Fondos in Europe, then it may be helpful to add a few more of these in. But for everything else, we can train areas that you need to perform well in other ways. For example, training more aerobically, doing intense VO2 max work. The tempo work will naturally occur on any race day. And remember, there's always an opportunity cost in training, so choosing one approach means that you're not doing another. And keep this in mind when you're making any changes. Now we can talk about getting a little bit more focused. This week, week 10, is all about threshold work. But what about anaerobic power or capacity? I have these 2 sessions in here, but you can really start to substitute here. And don't get me wrong, if you went through this plan all of a sudden, didn't change anything, you're going to come out of these 12 weeks ready to go and add on top of it. But here's where you could make bigger improvements if you start listening to what your body is telling you. You will be much better off if you just apply yourself a little bit, working out and thinking, what am I missing? Then you can really start to tailor the work around your specific situation. And you might not add it until you've finished all of the 12 weeks, but start thinking about it now, specifically for anaerobic work. You can get away without them for the first 8 weeks, the first 2 blocks, because they're so hard. But like I said, you could start adding them into the next block. And this, again, I'm just in week 11, we work with the same pattern. So we have this Tuesday, Thursday interval so that we can get to Saturday, because Saturdays are actually a really big ride and quite important. The whole weekend is actually pretty important here. And then week 12, this is when we get back to a rest week, which is super important and something that I actually discuss in this video.